The rise and rise of Qatar, a country full of gas, literally and figuratively. How did this country from nowhere become the richest per capita country in the whole world, and how it appears to wield a very dexterous knife which seems to promote terrorism, at the same time promote business, at the same time keep good relations with Uncle Sam and perhaps even China and even India. How does it do all this stuff? This is more of a factual findings of how Qatar rose to what it is today and where does the future belong for Qatar. A small request to all of you to please like this video, and if you have not already subscribed to our channel, do subscribe to our channel. Here we go. The rise and rise of Qatar, a country full of gas. We have to take a step back at this point of time and look at what happened, in Qatar. Before 1996, it was largely a barren desert with a population of close to 320,000. Now they have casually spent $96 billion on Boeing jets, the largest purchase in history. Their $450 billion fund owns more property in London than the British royal family. That should tell you something as to how rich Qatar is. Now, what happened in this recent trip of Trump is that on 14th of May, the United States President Trump announced a $96 billion agreement in Doha, enabling Qatar Airways to purchase 210 Boeing jets, marking a significant milestone in his aviation diplomacy during his Middle East tour. He said that the deal was for 160 planes and was worth over 200 billion, although the White House later issued a fact sheet stating that it was up to 210 jets and worth 96 billion. Somewhere, I think the TCO, the total cost of ownership, got confused with the actual value, I think. And be that as it may, the actual amount for the order is $96 billion, which is fine. What is Qatar? You remember that one thing where some ex-Indian Navy personnel were sentenced to death in Qatar for spying? Why did ex-Indian Navy people go to work in Qatar? Well, Qatar has, for one person of Qatari's descent, there are 7 to 8 people of foreign descent, mostly from South Asia. South Asia means what? It means India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and perhaps Philippines and Indonesia. That's Southeast Asia, but I'm just telling you, but this is the bulk of the workforce in Qatar. I've had the fortune of going through Doha a couple of times when on my way to India and back. And, you go across the malls in the airport, most of them are manned by people of Indian origin. Many of them even came up to me and said that they watch my shows. Thank you so much for your support. See, the point I'm trying to make is how did Qatar manage, or how does Qatar manage to, lord over the world with so few people and with so many people working at their disposal? Nobody gets any citizenship. It's all work permit visas kind of thing. And I don't know whether there's renewal every so often or not. So whatever it is, this is how Qatar makes things work. And so is UAE, Dubai, Abu Dhabi. These people also do the same thing. And I think perhaps it's true of other countries also in Middle East, such as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So 320,000 Qatari nationals, but the total population is 2.8 million. Figure this one out. Almost 10 times more or 9 times more. That's why I said that for every Qatari's national, there are 7 to 8 other country nationals, and these are all temporary workforce. They may never ever get even a permanent residency permit in Qatar. Until the 20th century, Qatar was a poor British protectorate reliant on pearl diving and fishing with scarce arable land, no rivers, and minimal rainfall, limiting its prospects for centuries. Then what happened? Well, oil was found in Dukan field, providing modest wealth starting in 1949. But Qatar's reserves were small compared to, say, Saudi Arabia or Kuwait, the 14th largest globally with 25 billion barrels. So the discovery of North Field, the world's largest natural gas field, shared with Iran's South Pars, containing 10% of global gas reserves, was initially deemed unprofitable due to limited liquid natural gas technology. You can see here the picture of the North Field and how Qatar is with respect to the rest of the Gulf area. You can see it's like a peninsula that sticks out into the sea, and from the Ras Laffan area beyond into the sea, they have one of the biggest liquid natural gas terminals. Now, how did the prosperity come about? That itself has a story of its own. Sheikh Hamad's vision led to a $20 billion investment in LNG infrastructure with partnerships with ExxonMobil, Shell, and Chevron. These are all American companies. By 2006, Qatar became the largest LNG exporter, overtaking Malaysia, Russia, the United States, and Indonesia. LNG exports drove GDP per capita from $2,755 in 1990 to over $50,000 by 2020. By 2025, Qatar's economy surpassed Ukraine's pre-2022 invasion size despite having 16 times fewer people. Here is a comparison of the economy sizes, and you can see Qatar is right up there. And if you look at the next largest LNG exporter, it's Australia, then United States, Russia, Malaysia, and so on and so forth. Now, how did this transformation happen? Well, more importantly, by 2026, they want to put a $30 billion investment to increase production of LNG by 64%. And they want to do that by recapturing the top exporter spot because they see an opportunity because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now, how does Qatar invest in itself as well as in other countries? Well, they have the QIA, Qatar Investment Authority, which has a corpus of $450 billion in assets. And if you look at the amount, that's almost the same as the GDP of Egypt, making it the 9th largest globally. Qatar is the single largest property owner in London with 95% stake in the Shard. It's a Western Europe's tallest building, 100% ownership of Hares, the museum, majority stake in the Canary Wharf Financial District, and a 20% stake in Heathrow Airport, 7th busiest globally. Now, Qatar also has invested big into Manhattan. I'll come to that in just one moment. But let's take a look at some other holdings. It includes a 10.5% stake in Volkswagen Group, full ownership of Paris Saint-Germain Football Club, PSG, 7th most valuable football club, and investments in Barclays Bank and Chelsea Barracks. QIA assets equate to $1.4 million per Qatari citizen, the highest of any sovereign wealth fund. $1.4 million per Qatari. How did Qatar acquire so much power? Well, you know that they hosted the World Cup soccer the last time it happened, and you remember also that close to 6,000 people died because of the absolute heat that was there under which some of the stadia were constructed. Many of them who died happened to be from Indian subcontinent, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Nepal, and Qatar just brushed it under the carpet. And I wish India had brought it up when Qatar made such a big fuss about Nupur Sharma. But anyway, be that as it may, I hope now India has a little bit more spine to stand up to Qatar and its billions. Anyway, let's go back to the soft power. Founded with a 137 million grant, Al Jazeera became the second largest public media conglomerate after the BBC, and both give slanted news. And Al Jazeera has global bureaus and influence across the Arab world. When they made their presence felt in the United States, they went and got this guy who was fairly famous in CNN. His name was Ali Velshi. And when he signed off on CNN, you could see the sheepish look on his face that he was going to go join Al Jazeera. I don't know why he had to put that face on, but somewhere I think his conscience was pricking him. I don't know, because he didn't last long there. I don't know where he is today. Maybe he has his own network, or maybe he is back with some other network. That is Ali Velshi for you. But Al Jazeera Be that as it may, even the fake news that they promote, it is done in a very professional manner. You almost want to believe what they are saying. I don't watch it, of course. In fact, I have stopped watching news from TV. I just look at it once in a while. Most of the time, I get my news from other sources, and I would highly recommend you to do that too. News from TV channels has become totally slanted these days, and essentially they are propagating lies. And with no threat of lawsuits, these people are running amok at this point of time. So Al Jazeera's coverage of Arab Spring and regional conflicts amplified the soft power of Qatar, but drew criticism for bias. Now, in I think 2022, if I remember correctly, they hosted the FIFA World Cup, a $200 billion project. As part of that, I think they built new cities and new stadia, and I bet my bottom dollar that when Indian Premier League comes up for sale, or at least some teams come up for sale, these guys, along with Saudi Arabia, will be bidding their asses off to try and get a hold of that. IPL is being fattened right now, in my opinion, to try and make it very attractive for acquisition, because that's why I think the owners are hanging out, even though on their books they are showing losses year after year. The ownership of PSG and hosting events like the 2006 Asian Games and 2012 UN Climate Change Conference has solidified Qatar as a diplomatic hub. I'm not so sure of that. These guys hunt with the hounds and run with the hares. Qatar also hosts Al-Udeid Air Base, the US military's largest in the Middle East, with 11,000 personnel and 100 plus aircraft used in operations in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. In 2022, the Biden administration designated Qatar a major non-NATO ally. By the way, I've also heard that the entire police administration in the state of Qatar is also being managed by United States, not just having a huge military base. I've heard this. I don't know how true this is. People who live in Qatar can correct me if I'm wrong. Sharing a north field necessitates cooperation with Iran, straining ties with Saudi Arabia, Iran's rival. Qatar maintains pragmatic relations with both, balancing US and Iranian interests. Now, here you see the city of Qatar. What are all the different smaller cities in there? Doha is, of course, the capital, but that's not where the oil fields are. The oil fields are near Ras Lafan up in the north. And you also know that much of the stuff, there may be some common ground between Iran, whose south Pars fields are actually intersecting with the north fields of Qatar. Now, a few years ago, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, and Egypt imposed a 3.5-year blockade, accusing Qatar of supporting terrorism, especially Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, etc., and of also aligning with Iran. Qatar survived by rerouting Qatar Airways flights via Turkey and Iran. So they got a friend in Turkey also. It is believed that the recent trip of Trump was to wean Qatar away from Turkey, and also to meet with the Syrian new head honcho was also a way to try and wean Syria also away from Turkey, trying to limit Turkey's influence in all these places. Now, in 2021, US got into mediation and they got the ban lifted by Saudi Arabia and other countries over Qatar. Again, Qatar knows, it's almost always like a cat that knows how to land on its four legs. The strategic diplomacy and geopolitical balancing, Qatar is unmatched. They joined the Saudi-led coalition against Yemen's Houthis in 2015, but was expelled in 2017 due to blockade tensions. The Yemen war, linked to Saudi-Iran rivalry, underscores Qatar's precarious regional position. Now, let's take a look at some of their big hits. Qatar Airways. It was founded in 1993 and became the 9th largest airline globally by assets, rivaling Air France, KLM, and surpassing Turkish Airlines in revenue. It operates one of the largest extensive networks connecting Doha to major hubs, bolstered by LNG wealth and strategic investments. The 2017 to 2021 blockade forced costlier flight routes, but Qatar Airways adapted, maintaining its competitive edge. Now you know that with them buying more Boeing flights and Boeing planes. I think they are planning to do some sort of an end run around Turkey. And don't be surprised if Indigo starts flying through Qatar as a point to distribute its passenger traffic bound for Europe and United States. This is not something new. The only difference is that Indigo will have the leg from India into Doha, and from there it will be Qatar Airways. Don't be surprised if that happens. 88% of Qatar's population are foreign workers, primarily low-skilled South Asian men, creating a 3:1 male to female ratio, the world's largest. Human rights groups report conditions akin to modern slavery, including passport confiscation, limiting mobility, low wages, and poor working conditions, contrary to promised terms. 6,500 worker deaths, I talked to you about this, during World Cup infra projects attributed to extreme heat and unsafe conditions. Now, Qatar is seeing some opportunities post the Ukraine invasion. What are those? The 2022 Russia invasion of Ukraine cut Russian gas supplies to Europe, creating a massive LNG market, and Qatar was ready to tap into that. They signed contracts with Germany and EU, expecting to supply half of its North Field expansion to Europe by 2026. However, with now a ceasefire impending, who knows how things are going to turn around. Qatar's economy is projected to grow by over 4% in 2025, driven by LNG exports, enhancing its leverage over European energy market. I have my doubts on this, guys. This is the path that Qatar wants to use to take LNG from Qatar all the way up to UK and to Western Europe. So the Fluxus Z-Link LNG port terminal is the one that they are planning of using. However, this needs to pass through Suez Canal. It seems like a rather long route to me compared to what Russia can do directly using the Nord Stream pipes. Now, how did all these things happen? You have to go back to 1995 when Sheikh Hamad deposed his own father, Sheikh Khalifa, in a bloodless coup when Khalifa was in Geneva. Supported by the Al Thani family, Hamad secured Doha and froze Khalifa's overseas accounts to prevent a counter coup. Driven by Khalifa's conservative rule, economic stagnation, and a power struggle, Hamad aimed to modernize Qatar and exploit the North Field. Hamad's 20 billion LNG investment has paid off in spades, and this has really launched Al Jazeera and transformed Qatar into a wealthy, influential state. He abdicated in 2013 to his son Tamim, ensuring a smooth transition. The coup strained Gulf Cooperation Council (GCC) relations due to Hamad's ties with Iran and Israel, setting the stage for later conflicts like the 2017 blockade. So from 17 to 21, they were in a bit of an oblivion, but they've come back after that thanks to the United States. By late 2010s, LNG accounted for 70% of government revenue, 60% of the GDP, and 85% of exports, risking economic vulnerability if markets shift. And I'm telling you that with Russia becoming normal again, with the ties to the Europe being restored again, I think Qatar is not in a great shape. And plus, I think India is de-emphasizing its needs of LNG from Qatar. That would mean that Qatar is about to lose a big consumer of their product. I think Qatar will have to do some tap dancing here. Qatar's ties with Iran and support for groups like the Muslim Brotherhood alienated Saudi Arabia, leading to the 2017 to 2021 blockade and accusations of terrorism sponsorship. Even today, it is believed that it is Qatar who does a lot of sponsorship, backhanded, of course, of Hamas, ISIS, Muslim Brotherhood, and many alphabet soup organizations in the United States and elsewhere. I have my own doubts about how successful they are going to be in their LNG expansion plans. I do believe that there is a market for LNG, but I don't believe that Qatar is going to be able to hog all of that because there are many players entering the picture, including the United States. Russia has always been there, US, Australia, Malaysia, a new player like Guyana also coming in, Venezuela. So this is going to be a very crowded marketplace. I think the LNG prices also will be challenged, and so will be the prices of crude. So in summary, Qatar has invested wisely and they have had impressive growth, but for how long? How long will they be able to continue to do this thing is a question that's on everyone's lips. Plus, Europe. Will Europe now decide to take all its LNG demands from Qatar, or would they like to place, part of the bets there, part from somewhere else, part from Russia, and so on and so forth, and make sure that all of them fight for their own space to stay relevant? And that's what I would do if I were Britain or Western Europe. But then let's wait and see how this plays out. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar.